The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
I'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. And there's so much going on that we are just overwhelmed, at least I am. We're going to start off today by talking about the events of the weekend and of the past few days. We're going to begin with Saturday. This is now Wednesday, the 18th of June, and we're going to start with the No Kings protest on Saturday. That coincided with Trump's military parade and the debacle there. And then we'll move on to other topics that are all in the news. So who would like to start? Scott, Mark, what do you have?
Well, Scott, you were at one of the No Kings protests. How'd that go?
It was a very spirited group of people, a little on the older side. I really would like to start seeing some younger people come out for these things. But because, it was a sea of gray and white hair.
So they all look like us.
Yeah. I mean, it's older people seem to be more engaged in this kind of activity, which is strange because, we all grew up in the 60s with seeing the older kids going out there and marching and fighting the draft and all that kind of stuff. And it doesn't seem that young people are particularly engaged at the moment, which is kind of a bummer. But at the same time, I ended up not going down to Stamford because there was one right next door to me in Bethel, Connecticut. And it was a really good rally. They had a guy playing the guitar and singing some pretty cool songs, and it was really nice. And it was not the best weather, of course, we all know, and a lot of people got wet because it rained a couple of times. But overall, I've heard that anywhere from 5 million, I've heard 5 million, I've heard 11 million people came out and protested. Some of the signs were really quite clever and pithy. Mine was not. My sign simply said "No Kings for real" or something like that. I don't even remember, but I think it made the point anyway. So that was good. I thought, look, the people are engaged, at least the older people.
And that's actually kind of funny because the older people were the ones that were kind of the Trumpers, because they wanted the things to kind of stay the way they were. Now it seems to be shifting a little bit, especially when you start talking about Medicaid and stuff.
Can I break in for 1 second?
Sure.
I did listen to Democracy Now! And they were in New York City, and there were young kids, 15 years old, very young, who were out there. And I think some of the young people were saying, we want some older people to come out. They were all young, very young, teenagers in their 20s, and they were looking for older people. So that was New York City, however.
Because we were all up in the burbs.
Yep. So I guess it may be. So who came out may depend on where people lived. Yeah, I heard anywhere from 5 to 11 million people across the country.
That's a lot of people.
Yes, it is. Yeah. So go ahead, Mark. What were you saying?
Well, I mean, again, it's a sign of the times. I really do think that Scott's correct. Our big thing over the past 2 years, when we were talking about the elections, was how unengaged people were. And we've really discussed that quite often. We've said, people have to get involved. There's nobody going to come to save us. It has to be us. People have to be involved. And I really do think that what we saw over the weekend with these No King protests really did show, that's 5 million people. And as Scott said, the weather wasn't the best in a lot of these places. And the fact that they came out and actually participated. And there was no violence that I've heard of whatsoever. It almost seemed a little bit. I was watching one, and I can't really remember where they were showing. It looked like Woodstock because they had bands up and they had things like that, and then they had people come and speak, and it all seemed very American, where people come up and speak and people are listening and cheering and doing the normal things, and nobody's saying just knock them out or anything like that. It was just normal stuff. And I have to admit, I do have and it's on its way, my no USA or United States rejecting kings since 1776 hat is coming, as well as my no king shirt is coming. And I think there's a lot of people, and I saw a lot of that out there. So of course I went on to Amazon. I said, probably Amazon. Amazon's got like a ton of stuff like this. So people are this is becoming a very, very big deal. Probably a bigger deal than Trump's phone, which is another. But let's switch a little bit to the military parade. Of course, Trump's people say that there was 250,000 people. Most estimates say there was maybe anywhere between 6 and 10. Those are the best estimates. They show the video of it. There's empty stands. Trump looks miserable. You could see him yelling at Hegseth because this is not the way it was supposed to go. People, the people in the tanks, the military people in the tanks are just like you would normally expect. We're waving to people and things like that, not doing the Kim Jong-un or the Russian or the Chinese kind of thing where everybody's at attention and, doing the goose step and all that stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it was an absolute disaster and serves him right. And hopefully Scott's idea of getting tickets and not showing up, because I know I have to admit, I got 250. And hopefully that did work out, because they were expecting over 250,000 people, and they probably only got anywhere between 7 and 10,000, I believe, was the highest estimate that I saw.
And it looked to me like, Marco Rubio appeared to fall asleep. It looked like Trump fell asleep on his feet. People were not enthusiastic, who were sitting there. And I also listened to some commentators who know much more. I mean, I don't know anything about the military, being a civilian, who said that the soldiers themselves were not marching in proper drill. They were actually out of step with one another, which is something that one does as protest, to be just out of step with one another, because the first thing a soldier does is, or service men and women learn how to do, is drill in step. There's someone calling cadence. That is something that one learns and something that one retains, and that a sign of disrespect is to be out of step deliberately.
Could be.
And by the way, the bands, the Army band downrange played Fortunate Son.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And that song might as well be about Trump himself. The lyrics to that song, if you haven't heard it, go out. It's about some guy who doesn't have to go. It's about a guy who avoids the draft. Yep. And but whenever they play Hail to the Chief, he's the most patriotic guy around. So I thought there were a number of different. I did note that the Army guys were not marching in unison, and that they were very much kind of bedraggled looking. And I had read that according that according to some of the military people, they disdain marching because that's like the amateur stuff that you do when you first get there, and then after a while you learn how to be on your own, and you don't have to march in unison, so that marching in unison is considered almost an insult.
Well, and I was kind of just it came up on my feed. It was a old YouTube video of Monty Python, and it has Michael Palin is the drill sergeant, and he goes, "Let's, here's my little plan. Let's march up and down the field. And does anybody have anything better to do than that?" And the guy goes,
Right.
"Well, I'd really like to be home with my wife and kids." "Oh, would you now? Okay, off you go." And then they all finally learn that if they have an excuse, they all go. And it is absolutely hilarious.
It is.
And that's
great.
exactly what this kind of looked like. Was like, I didn't come up with an excuse not to be here. And here I am. And of course, the guys in the tanks are waving as if they're, on a float. And that's just not what they do in like North Korea or China or Russia or Iran, the places they do these kind of things. They don't do that. And so, yeah, and Trump he looked like he was about to cry, which was, I have to admit, it was a most satisfying thing. And the other satisfying thing was watching Melania sit next to him as if she's about as disinterested as they can be. So, I mean, nobody likes to, make fun of somebody else's misery, but I have to admit, this was one that it was fun. It was a lot of fun making fun of his misery, and really all kudos. I'm sure many of our listeners were out there at the No Kings protest. I have to admit I was not, because here in South Carolina there were none, except there was, I believe there was one down in Charleston, and maybe a small one in Columbia, but up here in the upstate, no way. So, but yeah, it was an interesting. It was really interesting to see that people were engaged. Maybe that's a good sign.
Oh, I think so. I think that the two things, the empty stands down in D.C. on Constitution Avenue is a great sign that people are rejecting this idea, and not saying happy birthday to the commander in chief, and that people getting out there and marching and protesting and having signs and all kinds of good stuff like that. And I don't know how you ever get like an accurate count, but let's just say anywhere from 5 to 11 million people. That's a tremendous protest.
Yeah, it is.
And coordinated quickly online. As I said, I didn't even know that there was a protest in Bethel until like the day before. I had planned to go down to Stamford, which is 45 minutes from here, and I ended up driving over 10 minutes away, and terrific. Yeah.
And across the country, which shows a very much united, we the people.
Well, I did have, this weekend was marred by one thing for me personally. A really good friend of mine, a friend for 25 years now, here in town. He and I had a falling out, and I just decided to write him off. He sent me a couple of text messages, and I haven't responded to them. I cut him off on Facebook. I'm not engaging with him anymore because I had seen a sign of some people in front of the White House holding up a big sign that said, "We need Trump the King," or something like that. And I took a screenshot of it and I put it on his feed in an argument that we were having about all this stuff. And I said, you know what? This literally makes me sick. This is sick. Like that anybody in America would say, yes, we need a king. And he wrote back, this is a good thing. Like, this is what we need now. And I was like, you know what? That's it. I'm done. I'm out. And I don't plan on talking to him again. And it makes me sad because he's a good friend of mine, but I do believe that he has gone insane, and that the Trump derangement is people who are deranged for Trump, not people who are deranged against it. It was really tough, and a lot of friends of mine who are mutual friends concurred that this is just, we're out. You can't do this anymore. So the country is deeply divided. I'm sure that he gets all his news from Fox. And he has no idea what's actually going on out there. And the people who do that, who get their news from Fox, really know less than people who don't get news at all, like my daughter. And it's tragic in a really big way for America that we have this kind of serious divide between people who are following what's essentially state television on Fox and other right-wing outlets, and people who can corroborate news stories with different sources and see that they're the same and come to the conclusion that if enough people are reporting it in different ways from different places, that it's the truth. And you don't get that on Fox. You only get the the crazies talking about things. So that was really sad, and that's a sad state of affairs for the country.
Sorry, did either one of you see footage? I heard that veterans were on the steps of the Capitol, and that an 80-year-old veteran using a walker was actually pulled away from his walker and arrested. Is that accurate? Did either of you see that?
I did not know
or hear about that.
Nope.
There's so much
that
stuff
veterans
going on.
were arrested.
Nope.
On steps of the Capitol for, I don't know, trespassing or something like that also on Saturday.
Nope. I did hear they got the controller of New York City.
Oh yeah.
And one of the Democratic candidates running for the primary for mayor.
Yeah, I saw that footage.
I mean, they got them, and of course, you have to look at Fox every once in a while to see what's going on with the other side. And I was watching Fox. I can usually do it in about 20-minute segments, and then I have to, I don't know, go out and have a beer or two or something stronger. But they had Maria Bartiromo was praising one of the Trump children about this new phone, Trump cell phones that are coming out for $499. And the thing that hit me was, well, okay, let's think about this for a minute. So he puts tariffs on all the other cell phones from China and everywhere else, and then he creates a cell phone and a cell phone service himself. There's something, I don't know. I'm not sure that's
corruption.
Yeah, that's pretty corrupt. Take out the competition, and then, and Marie Bartiromo was all happy about it and all that stuff. And that's where I had to say, okay, fine. Just like Scott with his friend, I've had enough, turn it off, and go out and sit by the pool and say, wow, that's the world's largest mine. Now, I will say this, to Scott's point about his friend. There's a rule here at the Bound Estate that we don't talk politics. If you start talking politics, if you've had too much to drink and you start talking politics, your ass is told to leave. And that's with dear friends of mine. Your ass is told to leave. I'm not going to argue something with somebody that has Trump derangement syndrome. Now, I will say this. I disagree with Scott with one thing. Trump derangement syndrome goes both ways. You've got people that think that he's the greatest thing in the world. You also have people out there that think the entire world's problems are all him. And guess what? He's just not that important. It just doesn't, it doesn't work that way. So I really do believe it goes both ways. Both ways are very extreme. It's amazing how divided we've become.
Scott, did you want to add anything else?
No, not really. I think we'll talk about Trump derangement more in the next segment about Iran and Israel, I'm sure. So we'll just let it go for now.
Oh, definitely. And also with the situation with those poor people who were murdered by that man in Minnesota.
So, and I will, but I will say this: Trump was on TV this morning putting up some flagpoles at the White House and spoke to the press a little bit. And somebody from CNN asked him a question about, the people of the United States don't want to go to war or something along those lines. And he said, I'm paraphrasing here, that I'm more beloved now by my voters than I was even on election day, and this is the part that gets me, and that I was the hunted, but now I'm the hunter, which is a really strange thing for a president to say. His perspective on things is very bizarre. Anyway, that's all. I think we killed it for this segment.
I wanted to thank all our listeners. Thank you again, and we'll see you again next time.
The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert, cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com.